next panel that's all about branding in the wild, how to stand out in a sea of sameness. It's all about being unique, it's all about having an impact and being unforgettable. It dives exactly into how to do that. Let's get this conversation started right away. Joining us on stage are our incredible panelists with our moderator, Mr. Shivesh Vishwanathan, founder and MD of Focus View Strategy Consulting. Please put your hands together in a massive round of applause. Along with him, we have Mr. Sajid Warrior, the founder and filmmaker and AI VFX specialist at A-Tour Technologies Private. Put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen. Along with them, Mr. Sharik Ziakhan, the CMO of iGaming. Put your hands together. Joining them, Mrs. Saloni Jahawar, the Chief Marketing Officer of Mouse and Cheese Design Studio. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Gunjan Trivedi, the co-founder and CEO of Quadigy. Let's welcome our panelists with a warm round of applause. And I hand off the mic to you, Mr. Trivesh.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for that introduction. I'm certainly very honored and privileged. It's delightful to be part of this panel discussion. I'm very privileged to have great panelists. We've bonded over the last couple of weeks. We've met a few times and hope to give you a great session with a lot of insights as best as we can. So welcome everyone. Once again, this is Sajid, Sharik, Saloni, and Gunjan. I'll take the liberty to give a little bit of perspective on what we bring to the table. Sajid here is a media production, video production person. I hope that adequately explains Sajid's profile here. Sharik is into gaming, has a lot of insights from gaming where the user experience and the user journey and all comes together very quickly. So you can imagine the kind of inputs that he will give. Saloni is a brand and UX and brand design, UX design, runs a consultancy out of New Delhi. And Gunjan runs a digital marketing agency, focus more on the B2B side of things, I think. So, and I am Shivesh Vishwanathan. I run a company called Focus View Strategy Consulting, and we offer kind of like pre-GTM marketing strategy kind of services so that, all these other downstream folks can do a really good job of, marketing and communications for companies. With that, let me do a quick understanding of, what kind of audience we have here. So how many people are founders and, business owners, CEOs? Wow, great. So it's a mix of audience with from marketing background as well as people who are running the businesses. So it's a great conversation because that's the value that marketing teams can provide to business and to the leadership teams. And a quick show of hands, how many of you feel your brand's voice is genuinely unique until you hear from your competitors? Or how do you feel, how many people feel that, you have a pretty unique voice as a brand, as business owners? So we have one or maybe half a hand that went up. So we know how difficult it is, right, to stand out in the sea of sameness. And how many believe your brand is unique and according to your founders? And how many people? How many B2B people in the audience? Okay, so like 50-50%. So B2B and B2C 50%, I guess. Okay, let me paint a quick picture before we jump into the panel conversation, because what I want to provide with the audience today is a general kind of a rough framework and a key, quick takeaway that is really going to help take one thing away from an audience, because panel discussions can get pretty daunting with such great insights that will come. So as we were discussing our kind of unique strengths and what we bring to the table, one thing that came out was that there are the whole marketing and differentiation is consists of four real strong components. The first one is the strategy part of it. So how do you define your business? How do you define your uniqueness, your product, your offering, and so on? Second is the brand and how you want your brand identity, how you want that uniqueness and that strategy to come out. The third is component is the operations and execution part of it, on how ultimately you run your campaigns and everything. So that's where the rubber meets the road. And the fourth component is the customer perception and how you want customers to perceive. So customer is of course an important per, person in the whole equation. So, but if you see these four things, it kind of a good way to visualize this is a flywheel where you have like you start from strategy on top, then you move to brand, then you move to execution and build a customer perception. But then that customer perception again defines your strategy, whether you got it right or not. So throughout this conversation, I would request everyone to have this kind of flywheel in mind with these four uh, uh, points in that flywheel: strategy, brand, execution, and customer perception, right? And we keep kind of running over this flywheel. So with that in mind, let me jump to the description of this flywheel. And what I'll do is I'll ask each of our panelists to describe one part of this, each spoke of this flywheel. So first question is to Gunjan. So Gunjan, when you look at the way brands operate internally, where do you think the sameness begins? What's the place it tends to, and what's the place that it tends to find its roots?
Um, Hey, hi. So this stems from not just my experience of B2B marketing per se. Technically, I've been a marketer for last maybe a decade or so. But before that, I was a, a tech journalist. I was editor of a publication where we were dealing with B2B firms, medium, large, and we were dealing with the CXOs and try and understand. For me, the aspect was technology, but the whole adaptability of it. So my visibility was limited from a technology point of view, and I was just looking at that. But even in that, we could see sometimes that the sameness differentiation conundrum was continuing to flow down. Now, when we are trying to say, for example, the biggies of the world, the Microsoft, SAPs, Oracles of the world, if I will, and I'm not trying to suggest that they have a problem. I'm just trying to give you a sense of the scale. Even in that sense, when they have multiple products, multiple services, multiple offerings, when they are trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to say? What am I going to speak? We started to see at one point, if you just remove the logo, everything sounded same, right? So from there, it started to actually happen. And then that, and glad you brought that question up, because that got me thinking in that the problem with brand or the sameness or the uniqueness is not with the brand. It's with the thought right up in the head of whoever is driving, percolating it down, right? So it's a problem of identity. Now, what happens is that many a times, especially in the startups area, where when you're trying to come up with a brand or solution or company, organization, whatever you call it, we are expert in one thing, and we have some belief systems. We start to work with that, but as we start to bring in more people, as we start to communicate and interact with customers, etc., there is a likelihood that the confusions may start to creep in, right? And then you're not sure what you're selling, what you're trying to say, what is happening. So it is actually happening right at the identity level, and then it seeps into the strategy. So if you don't get it right at the front, then you have a cascading effect, which will, and by the time somebody down the line realize that, hey, we're talking everything and nothing, right? It's sometimes too late to go back and change it. So we need to be conscious. We need to be really thoughtful of really who we are, and when do we say no to something, that no, we are not this. No, we're not going to offer this. No, we don't serve that kind of customer. So that clarity needs to be brought in. Without that articulation of identity per se, and I don't mean brand identity in terms of the look, shape, feel, etc. Right? I'm sure we are going to discuss that and more. But it's more about what is that belief system, what's that value system that I am identifying myself with as a founder, for example, and then my organization.
Answering the who are you. right?
who
Who
I,
am
who
I?
am I,
Who am
and
I?
who am I going to be talking to? How am I going to talk about? And then what is it that I'll be offering, right? If that clarity comes across properly, then it starts to go back into strategy, feeds in, and then you start to work with it. That's what I've seen, and that is something, many a times it's an afterthought. So it becomes a little issue. People know what they're talking about. Everybody's know that. I'm not saying anything which is a rocket science, and I might be sounding like a motherhood statement I'm throwing at you, but the revelations keep happening later on when you're too dense. When you realize that you're mid-flight and now you need to change the engine, it's too difficult. So we need to do it before we take off.
Great, great. And that's a great segue to what I wanted to ask Saloni. So changing things mid-flight and realizing that strategy needs to get updated from time to time. So Saloni, what I wanted to ask you was from a couple of perspectives. So the second point in the flywheel that we're talking about from strategy is the brand part of it. But because it's a flywheel, there is a component that comes before strategy, which is how do you test the market about customer perception, right? So it's not just the movement from the strategy to the second hub, but also testing your strategy with the customer perception and then doing this so that your rework and revisits really go down. So can you shed light from, because you work with companies on product design, UX design, and defining their brand identity also. Can you touch upon these couple of aspects on how does strategy translate to brand and how do you test the strategy before you commit yourself to the next steps?
So actually, this is very interesting. And I think it takes courage to even execute that strategy, to make that strategy so that people who might have a diluted vision of what you have, because it is now that their vision, like they want to be the best, maybe the graphic designer, or maybe they want to be the best video editor. How do we bring these people together? So number one. Second, I would like to start with, like we're talking about brand. Brand is basically perceptions, just multiple perceptions. So, just to give a funny example, I am a Gen Z. And for the longest time, I just wanted to deny that I am a Gen Z because Gen Z now has become a brand. Yes, people are very diplomatic about that. Okay, yes, they are very smart. But then there is a lot of con side. And I just couldn't relate to those cons. And I was like, if someone calls me a Gen Z, that is how they are going to look at me. But that was not the case when I started to own it. Like, am I a Gen Z? I am very much a Gen Z. Yeah. So I think number one, it takes that. Secondly, rightly you mentioned. So it is a vision that the perception is created in a way like Gunjan was mentioning yesterday while our discussion. It is actually a strategy to build of a perception of a perception. So it is that way. We are actually rewiring so many aspects of it so that people start talking to us about that. So, for example, if I am in the market, if my product is in the market, how are people engaging it with? If I am online, are people writing comments or sharing it with their friends? Because this is the language we speak in the marketing terms. So I believe just to get those numbers, a lot of our uniqueness dilutes. Because if we will see ourselves as well on stage, so I am not this person when I'm at home or office. I'm very much a chappal person. And I like to sit with my folded legs on the chair. But right now, I just don't feel like doing it. But that doesn't change me. So again, coming back to the point, so like we were working with a hydration brand, I might say, and like currently with a skincare brand. So yes, it takes from the founders side too if they are ready to do this test. Because in the initial startup phase, so just to give a background, we closely work with startups, very initial level startups. So at this stage, people are very vulnerable for numbers, for yeah, let's just test something very quickly, let's go to the market very quickly. But it only takes for a few founders to actually do this pre-launch thing where they just test with actual customers in the actual market, but a very small size market, and do it. So yes, so coming back to the question, it is not now, for example, if it gets diluted, how do we currently just tweak it and understand the underlying problem? Like there's a surface level problem and then there is a real problem in it. So I think the first step should be identifying the real problem, and definitely like it looks good on the paper, but it is not just one person who is going to build that. There would be a lot of retailers involved, distributors involved. It should benefit everyone in one way or the other. It is not sometimes just stories, sometimes it is monetary benefit as well. And it is correlated with you as a brand. How much do you want people to benefit from your brand? Because at the end of the day, money matters. We like it, we don't like it, but it matters. So, yeah.
Great, great. So, yeah, so we've talked about strategy and the brand part, and what you said about the brand that, if you don't know who you are, and if you don't or you don't carefully craft that perception at the
Yeah.
strategy level, then the brand can really suffer. You cannot really do a very coherent branding
Yes, I
around that.
yeah.
I think the clarity is not just defining who we are. The clarity actually comes by defining who we aren't, right? That's where it starts to actually, fits in. And once you have that clarity, then it starts to, because then that's one premise you can stick around. When we are just defining who we are and not really defining the guardrails around it, there is a chance that we may just, start to, okay, I am a B2B, for example, focused. But if there's a B2C client and, as somebody said, good money, maybe at my level, my sales guys will say, no, you said, just B2B. And I said, okay, let's try. But with that one action, I may just send some signals, which I may not realize right now, but will have an effect later on, much, much later on. And then I can't complain. Then I have to work it on. Sorry, I just barged in.
No, no, that's perfectly fine. So basically, yeah, what do you say no to? Like you also said, Gunjan, right? It's one of the toughest things to say, right? I mean that, okay, I'm not going to do this, or we are not this. So I think that's very interesting, and it's also interesting that you used you said guardrails, right? So with AI, this term has really come up a lot, but it's actually just a manifestation or a reflection of what we should be doing ourselves anyway. So whether you guardrail the AI or not, ultimately you need to guardrail your business also, saying that, we are not, I'm not going to go in that direction and get distracted. Yeah, so we want the AI to have guardrails, whereas we want to go and do our own thing. No, and yeah, absolutely. Strategy, it's, from just going back to that for 1 second. So you have like your value proposition, your messaging, your positioning, essentially. All of that ultimately leads to positioning. Your differentiation, the differentiation is where it comes in, that who we are not becomes very important, right? And then that's how, because you're defined by also what you don't do, right? And being honest about that.
Yeah, just to add on to that. So there is a big misconception in the market, and there's a fine line difference between a business and a brand. So brand is not something that you can test on very quickly, but it is the business operational and quite very short messaging that you can check on, because that is something I think that the industry has to understand, be it us, be it founders and everyone. Because a brand is actually not built in a day. It takes decades for us to understand what we want people to say. And sometimes, so for example, if we give an example of Apple, Apple is a brand. But if you ask the normal users, how many have seen the actual Apple versus Samsung ads? You will find that number very short. But Apple is a status. Having Apple gives people confidence. I am not okay with chappal here because it will not give me the confidence that my current attire is giving me. That is what comes with brand. And
Yeah.
business is, am I okay?
Hmm.
Am I doing okay monetarily? Because I have salaries to pay. I have a lot of responsibilities ahead. There are investors involved. There are a lot of aspects involved. So I think the first step begin is to identify if it is a brand problem or a business problem, because both of it has to be corrected in their own way.
Right, right, absolutely. So, no, very, very great. Let me bring in Sajid over here. The next step, from strategy to branding. Now we have the actual execution, right? So you've defined your strategy, you've defined your brand, and you think that you have a relative differentiation, uniqueness. You can stand out in the crowd. Where do things go wrong now?
Yeah. When it comes to execution, there's a lot of difference in what we thought of and how it gets executed. And there's a whole pre-AI and post-AI kind of a pre-AI and post-AI kind of a world right now. Pre-AI, there was a lot of, I would call it human slop before, when when the whole idea of consistency changed and people started to do what they wanted, and it became kind of a rejig of the sameness, which kept on happening. So that is kind of brought in the post AI world as well. So I feel, in the post AI world, what the human slop has been converted into AI slop, I feel. And that is where the execution comes in. And if you don't have a core thought, the execution gets ruined anyway. So I think
So
that's
do you
where the
have
whole thing.
like what happens in your world in terms of, because I think if you're building a video or
Right,
a film or a movie, right,
right,
and you're producing these aspects,
right,
if something goes wrong at that level, how does that get communicated to your client or to the business owner? Like, how do you root cause this? Because as
right,
someone else has also mentioned that
right.
that's the symptom and that's where you see the manifestation of it, but the root cause might be
Yeah, no,
upstream.
it's very difficult. Once you are in the execution stage, you're just figuring out how to finish it off, and work with the clients and figure out what they want. And this communication always is a big deal. So I feel, I mean, execution at the execution point, you really can't change much. So I think, when your strategy has changed, or the strategy has been defined, you work with it. So that's what we do. Yeah.
Yeah, and perhaps I think one takeaway for the audience and for the, especially the founder members and the sort of the sponsors of marketing, so to speak, and the consumers of marketing on on the business side of things, is that I think at the execution level, what I've seen is, I think if things go wrong, then everyone jumps in to fix the problem at that level. Or maybe this video doesn't work this way, or this campaign is not going well. Let's tweak this metric. Let's tweak that metric. And it becomes really difficult because no one really wants to go back to the whiteboard, and that's almost like a, a negative and connotation is there with
Right.
that, oh, now do we have to go back to the whiteboard? But trust me, I think you will save a lot of your energy and effort, and the quality will really be supremely good if you're agile enough and can go back to step one and say that let's do this quickly, because we know that something is not working in the strategy, it's just showing up in the execution,
Right. It
right? So
definitely does. So I think you can go back and fix things and then find the brand as you go about it. So I think that's very important to
So
change. And
correct. So it's, I think we talk about agility, and and in software, I come from the software technology industry. So being agile about, from, we used to the technology industry used to be about waterfall, starting from like requirement design, where you have like 50-page requirement document creation and all that. That was like 30 years ago. But now that doesn't happen anymore, and there are weekly sprints and stuff. So I think that is the same thing. Probably marketing teams also should adopt, saying that okay, how do we run this flywheel very very quickly, right, within like 2 week cycles, let's say, right, if not faster.
Sorry if you, I mean, very good point, and I'm very sorry that I'm keeping Sharik away from the mic for so long. I'm not trying to do that, but the point you're saying, see the agility as the method, as the um, as a behavior is there. So even all the facets, not just technology, marketing, sales, operations, everybody is trying to be agile. Do figure, do more, do less. Keep working on that, keep improving that. What it does is that it's now leaving you with very less time to react to certain of the problems that you just mentioned, right? Which means that uh, while we are agile with our processes and the output, we also need to be, cognizant enough that garbage in, garbage out. So, which means that if there was, as Sajid just said, at the output level, we're realizing the communication is not aligning to what the brand wanted, and the brand manager is saying, "Hey, it's not, this is not what I wanted. Looks good, but not me." And then you're trying to fix the script, you're trying to fix the screenplay, and let's maybe it's the music, it's too casual, let's bring in more corporate music, all of that. That's just fixing the perception which Saloni was referring to, right? At that level, what you just said, Shivit, if we are courageous enough to actually accept and say, no, wait, I think the brief was wrong, let's go back and actually fix that, and again figure, okay, how do we do that? Then that might bring in. So we need to be agile at the thought process as well, We are waterfall at the thought process and agile at the output. And that is creating the whole problem where the brands now are looking so similar. You know, you just, as I said, you just move the logos out, they're all talking the same stuff. And what Sajid said, AI. Now, AI has taken away, AI has consumerized that differentiation which the skills had. The difference between two agencies, two marketing firms were all about the kind of, brains you had in your teams. Now that level has kind of got commoditized because now the brains are getting outsourced to AI, and now the differentiation lies in how good you prompt, how good you,
Yeah.
suggest that. Correct?
Right. Yeah, it's an industrialized sameness. So I think it's
True.
become what previously was the slop has
Like
become, sorry, what previously was the slop has become an industrialized sameness.
exactly. So fundamentally, because of the templates and everything, and we were just discussing it outside as well, AI is amplifying the sameness. So I have access to same templates and same style of what AI is producing as somebody else. We're just producing the same thing. So that agility needs to be now brought in into the management side as well, which absolutely what Saloni said. It's about business. It's not about brand. Is somewhere in the middle of the whole funnel.
Right. And I think what AI has done in my experience over the last couple of years is that it has really put the business on the spot a little bit, right? I mean, in the sense that we were all like busy bees, marketers doing marketing, salespeople doing sales, right? And we were all busy with work, and how productive it was always that's where all the focus was, at least, right? And a lot of activity that was happening. With AI, all of those activities have become simpler. Writing has become simpler, coding has become simpler, designing has become simpler. So now what the question becomes is that, uh, okay, I can do whatever you want me to do, but tell me, what do you want me to do? And that's the question to the CEOs that marketers ask, that, okay, now have you defined yourself? Do you know yourself? Do you know what you don't want to do, and so on? So I think, yeah, that's a great point, that, and that agility, I think, is going to help, and that more honest and fast and courageous conversation is, I think, very important, even for agencies to talk to their clients and have this honest conversation. Yeah, bringing in Sharik now. So, right, I mean, the fourth part of the wheel is the customer perception, right? So, and that's kind of the outcome. So whatever we did the strategy, we did the branding, we did the execution, and what happens at the customer perception level, right? And how does the sameness and if there is sameness that comes over there, and if it's like, the lack of remarkability is what I call, not being remarkable, because I think every company needs to be remarkable. And when I do something which is like, wow, someone says, I might not be an Apple, I might not be a Nike, but everyone says that, okay, you're doing something nice, doing something different, right? And that's what we would all love to hear as founders, right? So how do you get that, Sharik, that perception which someone says, that someone's eyes light up when you're talking to them? Because I've done my strategy, I've done my branding, I have done beautiful execution, done this whole agile back and forth and everything, right? uh, at the customer perception level, does something break over there based on the customer or whatever?
Yeah, so I've seen multiple gaming brands struggle at this because at the end of it, the end product is almost similar, right? Either it's a skill game or it's a casual game, but at the end of it, all of them are giving the same game to the user to play. So what I see is the problem is inconspicuous brand positioning. So you don't really identify your true USP that you can table to the user to identify you as a separate brand from other people who are giving you that particular service or particular product. So one problem is that, and the second problem is not understanding the needs and wants of the different micro segments that exist within your user base. So a poker player is very different from a rummy player, and a rummy player is very different from a fantasy player, and a fantasy player is very different from a sports book or a sports exchange player. So these are different kind of players, and they have different psychographics. They play at different times. There are different age groups which play these games. Like a poker would be more probably played by a younger audience, while a rummy would be played by a slightly elder audiences. So understanding the needs and wants of each of your micro segments, and then positioning your brand presenting your uniqueness in those for those particular micro segments is the key that I see.
Right. And that goes back to strategy that, for example, if, it ideally it shouldn't happen, but, or you would not want it to happen, but if things break at the customer perception level, then there was something wrong with the strategy, right? And most of the times, at least, right? I mean, maybe something went wrong in the execution thing. That does happen, but the bigger problem is the something what went wrong at the strategy level, and that's where the original comes back. We come back to the original question that at the time of defining your strategy, you just don't need to move to the right and go around spinning like this. You're coming to the left, testing the market and seeing what is the micro segment I'm going after. How are they responding to this strategy, right? Doing quick prototypes and running it by these people, and then that's how then you start the traversing the wheel, right? The flywheel. Great point. And I think on the strategy side of things. Differentiation is really, there are two ways in my experience that we look at differentiation can be looked at. I love the word differentiation, but there is a slight discomfort I have with the word differentiation in the sense that it still means that I am part of some category, I'm part of some story, I'm just a little different, right? So it still doesn't go all the way to say that I'm I'm completely new. My product category is new because ideally we would all want to create our own product categories or service categories and live there, rather than saying that, oh, I'm like 1 degree away from someone else, right? So I think that's an important aspect, that when you're defining who you are not, and all that, you're also implicitly trying to create your own market and your own product category, not just your own product or service. And I think that then because and from that you'll have your own customer segments that come in, the your micro segments. Maybe you're catering to not the standard industry or function based segments in B2B, or demographic based segments in B2C, but you're defining something extremely unique, right? You're really getting into the psychology of things. So perhaps that's what Nikes and Apples of the world really get it right, because it's not about demographics, it's not about those aspects, but it goes into a couple of levels deeper than that, right? Okay, so in the next segment, so I wanted to, so we have a quick time check. So we have about 5 to 10 minutes of our discussion, and I'd love to open it up for the audience as well. Um, what I wanted to, so Saloni, there are formats and contexts and different ways in which brand comes out, right? How do you manage the, or like a tactical question, how do you manage the shifts in consumer behavior, how they respond to these new formats, and short form versus long form? I know short form was all the rage. A couple of weeks ago, I read somewhere that people are going away from short forms and reels and want to go deeper into the podcast kind of things where they really get value out of it. How does that play into the whole differentiation equation?
So again, it comes down to the brand that you want to build a lot with who you and your team are. How does your business run? So how does the business run is also a part of how the brand. When we say brand, I think there is a big fog in our head, and it's just, perception is something that people say, visual identity is something that people say, but then there is a very important aspect which comes as personality. So for example, we might see a lot of agencies and a lot of people. How many have seen the manager driven jokes? How manager is not a very nice person? All of us.
For the record, a lot of hands went up there.
How many have you? Exactly. Exactly my point. And we are seeing that content. All of us here. And now coming to the second part. Have we seen the numbers on that? It is crazy. So it now joins with the goal of it. If the agency wants to be famous, or if XYZ wants numbers, for a number game, make relatable content which is not driven by the brand. But it is a very common topic that people talk on. For example, Gen Z. Which about Gen Z? Pardon my language, but you will see the numbers and a lot of founders just correlating, and there would be Gen Zs fighting for themselves. And the comment section rocks. So, and but when you post or see an artist's page, and when we look at their initial content, when they're actually showing their craft, when they are actually showing their skills, which is their own voice, which is their own composition, but the numbers are just so less. So yesterday and day before yesterday, people were discussing in the panel, like, we are actually fighting with the cute dog videos. We are actually fighting with cute baby videos, but we just remove that and suddenly all we see is our competitors. No. If you see a lot of vlogs, especially in India, where people are not in a very fancy home, they are just showing their life. But the numbers, the share, it is a part of the routine that people see when they reach home. And
Okay.
that is how. So, again, how do you use LinkedIn? So, suddenly in LinkedIn, all of us are on LinkedIn, I am assuming.
I
The
guess.
way you are on Instagram, are you on LinkedIn? If my friend texts me on LinkedIn, I will suddenly reply very professionally. And same person when would send me a message on WhatsApp, it is different. You will see stickers flowing.
Yeah, but there, yeah, correct. There is a core of me which is
Yes.
not different, right?
Yeah, I
Yes.
So
think
Sajid wants
formats
to
is
come back.
also, yeah, I think either formats is brand chooses different formats, and there are many different kinds of way it can be executed.
Yeah.
But the formats are very important. I think the reels are different, the shorts are different, the long format. And right now, I think volume-based content is going to be very big because AI can do that faster. I think that's where formats will change too. Yeah, Gunjan, what are your thoughts on
Yeah.
that?
No, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. So, for example, how many have used this emoji? All of us.
All the time. Yes.
When you use it with your friends, is it perceived the same way? It is sarcastic. What about that smiley emoji? It is like, I'm not saying a word, but all of them just understood it. Sometimes content is not even words. And I think the word of the year this year was 6-7.
Yeah.
Those are not words. So I think that is where the game comes in. But how many of you us watches movies? Same people, but a sticker won't work here. Now we want to invest that 1 hour, absolutely 1 hour, to just understand the story. When will the hero actually boom? When will he will have a downfall? We know there is a wave. There is wave in every movie. We all know that. Sometimes we can predict the movie and we'll say we knew it. And
So
as
yeah,
soon
so
as
whether you
something,
say it in 1 minute or 3 hours,
it
it,
is
the
your,
wave is the same.
I think
So
our expertise, I would use expertise here actually. This time I'm not feeling guilty to use it. But we should know our target audience enough. And it is not just the age demographics, but like Hemal was mentioning yesterday, like, you have to know their behavior in different hours.
So coming from that,
Yeah.
Saloni, the point about, so you talked about how digitization of our complex emotions, right? Whether it's a thumbs up or a smile,
Yeah.
it does an approximate job, but it could be interpreted as sarcasm
Yeah.
or whatever. Now, coming from another perspective, question for Gunjan, that when you're making content, now you have to make content not just for humans, you have to also make for algorithms. So what's the difference? So does that smile or that sarcastic thumbs up, eventually if your audience is also AI, what happens there, right? I mean, how does that communication happen? How do you build content? Do you build content differently for humans versus AI? Um, and how do you use that?
Very interesting question. Just before I answer this, just to set the context, and I know we are ticking on clock. Just to set the context, remember the flywheel you were referring to. We started with strategy. We need to have clarity, right? Now the clarity needs to not just be about who we are, who we are not, etc., but there's an inherent internal coherence that we need to bring in as well. which means that if a founder says, "Hey, I offer productized service," but my sales guy is saying, "Hey, I'm an implementation partner." My marketing is saying, "Hey, I'm a transformation partner," right? My operations is saying something else. Now, if that consistency is not there, then you're not only confusing humans, you're confusing algorithms as well, right? And mea culpa, and I'm sure everybody else will, cross your heart, and I'll not say the rest, but please tell me if that confusion hasn't reached in your organization. It happens because each one of us are defining ourselves a little differently. And if we are not able to, at the business level, define ourselves in one sentence, then the team will fill in the gaps. Now, that's what showcases in the content as well, visual, textual, whichever way it is. Content is what? Forms of communication. What Saloni referred to are just platforms of ways of communicating. If I were to make a pitch, then, or rather elevator pitch, then all I have is 10 seconds to tell you the same thing. If I had a deck, I have some 15 slides to tell you the same thing. If I have a corporate movie, I have 2 minutes to tell you the same thing. But the magic is not in the formats and all of that. The magic is in the same thing that I need to be telling you about, which means the consistency of that clarity which comes in. Now, one more thing that we should keep in mind, in my sense, is that many a times, and I was thinking when you were saying that, we are all trying to create a niche. We are all trying to create our, market segment. Why? Because I think it becomes easier to sell. The difficult part is to be in the place where you are in a space where others are also existing, and in that sense you are creating that differentiation. That's the brand, right? So Apple, Samsung, they all have followers, but then the brands are different. Correct. Now, coming back to the point, what we do is many a times, and we have been discussing this. Saloni was making points of different uses of formats of things, and 6-7 is completely lost on me. Thank you for reminding me that, and thank you for reminding me that we are not Gen Zs. What's happening is that all of this is for human consumption, right? The brand, the communication, the content, what we are creating are human consumption. That, if I keep the consistency going, which means at the founders level, my value proposition, my deck, my differentiation charts, my, all of those things will be the formats I'll be looking at in a B2B world. In a B2C world, obviously things change. But in the algorithm, consistency, the repeatability, the phrases that you keep defining yourself with, that matters. Because
Yeah, in fact, repetition is, I think, very
repetition
important.
is what is important. Because
Yeah.
why? Because algorithm is trying to put you in a cluster. And if you confuse the algorithm, whether it's AI or AI based SEO or SEO or social or whichever it is, if you confuse the personality, what Saloni referred to, if you confuse the system as well, then what it does, it has no obligation on you. It will just say, okay, if this is what you're saying, then maybe you are this part of a cluster, and that's not the cluster you wanted to be part of. That's where the whole
Becomes even
problem
more
starts.
correct. So it becomes even more important to uh, be more repetitive in marketing, and that's something
Exactly.
that I think we tend to forget in our
Right.
quest, because we're all very creative and
We're trying
we
to
want
create the niche. We're trying
Yeah.
to find new words to define
So I think,
ourselves. And that's not the joy.
right. So and I think great marketing teams and great companies that are known for their marketing are people who say the same things 10 times, and they're not afraid to say the same
Absolutely.
sentence, and
Absolutely.
their elevator pitch is exactly those 50 words or 100 words that they talk about, right? And there's no shame in that, even
Right.
though you feel like, oh, am I just rote learned the thing and saying it, but that's why you need
Because
to get
that percolates down when you
Right.
start to look
and,
at algorithm.
and God forbid you do that with AI, right? If you keep as in if you keep
Keep
changing,
changing, yes.
if you keep changing it with AI, the AI is going to get very confused. At least humans will have applied their mind saying that, okay, he used a different word, but I think he means this. But AI will not have the
See, it's very
smartness to do
simple.
that.
Humans can infer meaning.
Yeah.
Algorithms infer patterns. If you don't, if you're not clear with your patterns, and patterns come with
Great point.
repeatability.
Yeah.
So you need to have phrases. So which means your website, your thought leadership content, your blogs, your social posts, everything needs to connect. Now, when personality was happening, and what Saloni was referring to, different ways of different content and how do we look at it? Because humans are they're consuming a 30-second reel, and they're consuming a 3-hour movie with equal ease. But as a brand, if I'm able to bring that consistency across the two, then I'm able to create my differentiation and I'll be able to have my niche within the mind share. It is
Right.
nothing to do with how much numbers I get and everything. Sorry, I'm
Sure.
out of clock,
Right.
but that's the
Yeah.
point I was trying to drive at, that let's not be afraid of being clustered.
Hmm.
The differentiation lies in the way we approach, the consistency, the clarity,
Great
and
point. Yes.
eventually the repeatability of the phrases that we're using across different things.
Right.
If we define by humor, let's have humor everywhere. That's how
Yeah.
we work with this. Sorry, I
Sounds
took
great.
a lot of time.
No, that's great. So, Sharik, I'll give you the last word. Overall, if you were to, from a customer, especially the outcome perspective, customer perception perspective, right? From a behavior and psychology perspective, you touched upon it earlier. Anything you want to add, especially from the AI side of things? Maybe a quick minute for you, and then I think we can open it up for the audience.
Yeah, so it starts from the website. The first thing that the user experiences is the website, right? So, how's the website load time, and what kind of variety of games do you have on your website or your product or services? Then it moves on to the UI UX of it. Are you able to access things easily, or are you facing challenges there? Then it comes about, if you're doing a transaction on the website, are the transactions seamless, or are you facing challenges there? Then it's about transparency. If you're doing a transaction, do you have an account statement where you can see everything clearly? And then after that, it's about the service. If you're facing any challenges, are you getting the service on time? All of these things are touch points where your customer is creating a perception about your brand. You cannot miss at any of the touch points, and all of these cohesive, if the brand voice is cohesive and all of these touch points and all the communications that you're sending out, like Gunjan mentioned, at every place, it should have the same brand personality. If that
Right.
goes out, then I think the brand will be out there.
Right, great point. I think all the customer touch points are across all functions, customer service, customer support, everything, right? So I'll let me open it up to the audience. We have about 5 minutes. Any questions from the audience around this area that you'd love to answer?
Or did we end up confusing them with the perception you were trying to build for you?
Hello, guys. Good morning, and my name is Guna, as you know, and interesting insights that all of you have. Thank you for today. So I think most of the topic, or I would say the insight that you guys shared, would apply more towards anyone who has product-based solutions, right? But now, when it comes to service-based businesses, right? So in today's world, when we have AI, there's this the competitiveness becomes easy, right? So those days when you build a brand, you have interesting strategy, business strategy, everything you put in place. It takes a while for a competitor to catch up with you in today's world, right? But with AI, like what Sharik, you were mentioning, right? You get the blogs correct, you get the website correct, the UX correct, and it's so easy for someone to then just come and replicate it quickly and say they also offer the same services. I mean, this just doesn't happen. I mean, it happens in all the markets, right? In Dubai, in Malaysia, in India as well, especially, with a lot of them, when you have a lot of people, and with the power of AI, a lot of them can become entrepreneurs, they start a company, and everyone is trying to stand out. So how, as a brand, how do we then try to stand out above the rest?
Guna, thanks. Same thing, digital marketing services. I'm competing with the WPPs of the world, and I'm competing with a 20-year-old out of the college who's also offering SEO services, right, at God knows what price. The point is that is par for course. Whatever we're just discussing may not be just limited to product. It definitely works with services as well. The differentiation lies, service is service, right? If you look at from a definition standpoint, the differentiation lies in two things. One is, are you able to really understand the problem, what you're trying to solve with your service? And the second is definitely the delivery or the experience, right? These are the only two ways that we can create the differentiation. Otherwise, my SEO is as good as anybody else's SEO, or as good as anybody else's social, and all of those in build. But these are just the tools, right? It's all about if we end up being focused as marketer or brands owners or founders, if we just end up being focused only or fixated only on the brand, how different I am, or only on the product or the service, how do I create that differently and find a niche or etc., we are missing the plot. We need to be fixated on problem. When we work backwards from there, then it starts to actually bring in your differentiation. So it's the perception that we build with those promises and the kind of things we're talking to. For example, maybe my mic got cut off, or okay, I'm talking a lot. Or if you're trying to figure out what the end goal is, and many a times we've found that the founders or CEOs, etc., or CXOs, many a times are fixated on other things, and they're not really. Really true to what the problem really needs to be solved. And so you need to help them articulate that problem as well. Hopefully that 20-year-old is not able to do that yet.
But also, you can't replicate authenticity. So if you are authentic, anybody can copy that, but you might not be able to replicate that. The
Absolutely. I was going to say the
original
same
thought.
thing. I think your positioning and your differentiation, all it should be so unique to you that if anyone comes and tries to copy you, it should be like, you've asked for it, buddy. You're not going to be able to replicate it, and that's how strong our positioning needs to be. That because living it is going to be a very difficult proposition for them.
I would just like to add on to that. So I would like to actually differ from what everyone has said, to be honest. But my reason is fairly simple. Like, I know there is a big, and it has been separated for a reason, B2B and B2C. But if you see B2B as well, like, we will say we are all agencies. But now, when we are interacting with each one of you, it is different. It is different. It is, I think, when it comes to B2B or B2C as well, it comes with how much patience do you have and how much budget do you have. Both are equally important. So, for example, if you want to go wild, if you want to differentiate from a 20-year-old who is doing crazy and versus with 20 years of experience that you are doing crazy, because actual age that this meta boomed is same for both of you all. It is how much time you have invested in that. So for example, if someone who has worked in meta starts an agency and he is actually a 30-year-old, he knows the tits and bits of it.
Let me
It's-
put it one
Yeah.
last quick, maybe slightly abstract one, but something to think about. I'm very passionate about music. Music has essentially 12 notes, if at least the melody part of it, right? And you look at the amount of music that gets created with just those 12 notes. So I think the combination, your unique recipe, the way you put it together, I think is very critical. With that, let me just sign
act-
off. Thank you so much, Gunjan,
actually
Saloni,
have-
Sharik, Sajid.
Yeah.
Yes, please go ahead.
We actually have 10 more minutes for the
yeah.
audience but
I
we
can
need
talk
to
more.
make sure to just keep it to that 10 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Please turn this into a conversation. Feel free to come up on the mic and turn this into a conversation with our panelists.
Okay. So myself, Ganesh De Chauhan, I run a marketing agency, mostly into SEO and performance. So my question is into performance marketing. As you all know, since all are marketers, there is an Andromeda update, right? And we are in the world, especially majority of the client, where they say, "Mera logo bada karo." I need my logo to be bigger, right? Now, Facebook comes, Meta comes and say, "Lazy marketers' days are over. There is a AI. You can create content now. I want more content. You cannot repeat the winning ad creatives. You need to create winning ad creative every day. If you're doing advantage campaign, if you're doing CBO, ABO, I don't care. I need more creatives, more testing. And the core of marketing is back. Marketing is equal to A/B testing. How do you align with your brand, so-called brand guideline, and be authentic with your content, and still be updated and keep up with the all the updates that are going on?
Yeah. So if I can take. So I think here the role of a brand strategist plays a very, very vital role. So the guideline that you mentioned, it can be a guideline of one pager, which states this is the color code that you have to use, typography you have to use, and this is how you should align and position, place the logo with this much difference in the pixel. That is one set of the guideline. And another guideline is when you are facing this XYZ situation, when you want to cater your consumers FOMO, when you want to cater for a hype, when you want to cater the nervousness of a consumer, when the what happens when the consumer is confused between two services. So for example, if you are into performance marketing, you must have met multiple people here who are into performance marketing. Do you see them as your competitors? Why do you not see? And so does everyone in their own way. It is their experience, it is their relationship building skills, and all of it. So, performance marketing. So, for example, now you're saying how many creatives? Yes, it is needed. It is very much needed in multiple narratives, because if your target audience is just one, it is fairly simple. But if you are catering to multiple aspects of your target audience in different cities, be it in India, India is different in every state, every city, even 100 kilometers apart, you will see a different behavior. Within the city, you will see, if you will see Delhi, you can differentiate between a person from North Delhi, South Delhi, East Delhi, and West Delhi. It is a thing. So even when you're saying Delhi, it is Delhi with different behaviors. And I'm not talking about India. And I'm not even talking about Delhi NCR. I'm just talking about Delhi. So yeah, creative is required, and yeah, the role of the brand strategist plays a big role, so that it is for easy for the creators. It is easy for the people who are making the creatives, can make the creatives in a way that they do not have to put their brain into it on what should be there in the creative, but rather they put their brains. I would actually love if you will put your brain into how can we scale this in Meta, or how can we do the right SEO to it, not on this side of the. That is something that the brand and the creators have to take care of. So yeah, it is important that everyone understands their role. Performance marketing wouldn't be the single thing that will help forever.
True.
It needs the market presence, the real life presence. If you are a B2B, it is important that you are in places where you want your customers to be in. Not maybe selling your business, but just being there is important. So yeah, that is how I would
Gunjan,
like
you
to.
had
Yep.
something to say?
Just to extend what Saloni was referring to. Multiple formats, multiple creatives, the volume of it, because the platforms are driving it. They want the volume because they see the consumption drives the need, etc., etc., etc. But it brings back to the flywheel example what Shivesh was referring to, right? It's agile in that sense, so you need to have that loop. So the A/B testing never went away. We were just lazy about it, right? It's okay, let's go with it. But it's back with vengeance, so we need to be looking at it. The only thing is, which the A/B testing is not for, the A/B testing is largely for what is getting consumed or what is getting picked up, right? But if we are only fixated by trends, then the problem is that we may just be going after the trends because this particular kind of content work better, so let me just start to create that. It is short-lived. The long-lived stuff is the consistency we just kept harboring about, right? So whatever A, B, C, D in there, 25, 23, 26 letters, we can do all of those, but the core message remains the same. And I'm preaching to the choir. Everybody knows this. It's just that we are just maybe perhaps trying to get that call back in, right? Just a recall happening. So it's the consistency if we keep clarity about, which means that right at the first level, when the brand is asking you to do, hey, let's come up with these things, we need to push them back into consistency. What is that one message that you want to drive across these 1,000 creatives? You tell us, and then accordingly we can. That the creativity then takes over, but the clarity needs to be before creativity. Usually it's the other way around, and that's where the problem is.
Again, going a little bit back to the music analogy, right? I mean, so it's said that music is it's about those 7 notes, 7 natural notes and 5 flat and sharp notes, right? So 12 notes in total. But music is not about those notes. Music is what lies in between those notes. how you put the notes together, how you move from one note to another. So if the Eastern style of music, Western style of music have different approaches to it. So those anchor points and that repeatability is important. Music has rhythm also, right? So where that cyclicality is always there, that you have to keep talking, coming back to the anchor. But within those endpoints of that rhythmic cycle, that's where you create that magic, and that's where you create that thing. So it is that 1% creativity that you bring in with 99% repeatability and consistency is going to change the game. And good thing is with AI, there's more possibilities also that it opens up. Even from a
The other
creative
point is, sorry, Shvesh, the other point is we should learn from cyber threats, cyber security, how it has evolved. They were always trying to find where your next victim is, right? And that means they were looking for water holes, like in jungle where animals come in together. And just much like alligators and all the other, predators, we're looking for where people are coming in and then go back and cast the net and, bring them in. That's what the marketing should also be thinking like, right? So testing everything is tactical strategy, and then we go about doing that. Now within that, if you're not able to push back to the brands, and many times the brands come, for example, from an agency standpoint, and they're saying, no, this is the trend which is going, like, let's go for it. But does it really, is this trend the water hole of your audience, right? That if that clarity is there, then it all falls back in.
Yeah, Ayushi, please go ahead.
Hi guys, it's really cold here. Um, so one of the things that I'm taking away from this conversation is
Can you take the
that
mic a little to yourself?
better.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that I'm taking away from this conversation is that instead of focusing on standing out, being different trends, tactics, focus on being true to the brand, who you are, what you stand for, what is the positioning. So I want to understand from, and it's open to all of you, if you could help me understand, how do you define that for a brand or a client? Like, how do you define what that brand means? What is the personality? Do you guys do it completely at the agency end, research and do it, or you do it in collaboration with the client? So what are the steps, or if you can give an example that would be like, that would like complete this whole conversation for me. Thank you. Take this. No worries. So, like you mentioned, how I would like to state my particular. So, for example, like I mentioned, we work with very early stage startups. Some are even who do not have the brand name as well. So, how we see it is actually how you would date a person. It is like going on multiple dates with the founder. So in dating phase, the first, when you go on a first date, you are very excited. You will show your best side. You will be very, very maybe well dressed. Maybe you will have much more etiquettes than you do. And like he was mentioning, consistency. And for the relationship to work, can you do what you did on the first date till the end? And post your marriage too, because yeah, that is the game. So now, so how we start is, number one, just first hear the founder, hear whatever he or she has to say, and then just take a break and analyze, okay, this happened, just don't overthink it. Then the next step involves where, okay, now second date with the founder, now you guys are a bit more comfortable. So now when you're a bit more comfortable, you can ask a lot of questions. And when you ask that questions, it is on you how you can draw a pattern, how you can see this is what, because what he or she says in the first date is actually the vision, is actually the aspiration on how he or she wants the things to be. So that is number one. And now, once these 2, 3 rounds of dates are over, now you sit back and now you take a break. Okay, this is what is happening in the business world of these things. So, for example, if it's a hydration brand or maybe an agency, this is happening. This is how people are giving services. There are businesses who are giving the same service for 50,000, and maybe you are charging 1,50,000 and someone else is charging 3,50,000. What is the difference? is there a difference? Because pricing also, now coming to the pricing part of it, it is a very known fact that higher the price, the more luxurious it feels. But when you are nothing, it is not that way. It becomes a thing when you become a thing and how you portray yourself. So to make this differentiation, a lot of communication takes place. So who is going to be a representative, your voice at multiple places? Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn is one part of the thing. Pinterest, Reddit, people don't talk about it, but they're actually very good. Quora is very good. Medium is very good. Then comes the narrative or ad films that we might say. Ad in one ad film, two ad film, three ad film, you can never tell. I just don't believe it. You can ever tell your whole story. So now, how do you assemble these points and just bring it together and draft the narrative? So, for example, in our case, even when the brand has nothing, it is now like giving birth to a child. Now it is on you. What values do you want to put? Now to put that values, you have to create that environment. Now the people you hire, are they with the same goals? Do they have the same hunger as you? Are they equally interested in the
Right.
product and all of
Sure.
it things?
Correct.
And now, once all of it is set, when you set the name, even setting a name for a child is like something he or she will be called for the lifetime. It is important. Why do we see a lot of God names reference in India when we are naming the child? It is a thing.
So
It
brand,
is,
right?
it is not that the baby will become that God,
So
but we
brand,
want
it's
So
also
values.
brand is a creation
Right,
also.
right.
It's
exactly
not just an
brand is
articulation of what
creation.
is behind. So
Absolutely.
Gunjan, you
So,
had
Ayushi, if I may just add in what Saloni was referring to, just a little bit of a caveat over here. Dating, yes, goes for, I mean, we all know this. The only difference lies, or rather, the major difference lies, is how civil you are about it. You need not be. You know, need not be courteous and so he's not behaving well with the waiters, it's fine. Maybe he's tense or whatever. No, we need to push back, which means that if the brand is not able to really articulate and make us understand who are supposed to be their communication, whatever, if we are not able to understand and decipher it in our head, we'll never be able to help them articulate it later on, right? So we need to be asking them, who do you think you are? Not in that sense, but who you are, who you want to reach out to, really, who your customer is. I'm being told by again by cutting my mic out. Okay. Sorry if I just quickly come. Who you want to sell it to? What is it that you're offering? And the last bit is, how are you saying it, right? What is it that you want them to perceive you? What's that image that you want? These things are core. And then you need to keep pushing back. And she rightly said, the first few, this thing will be they're trying to impress you. But then eventually, as you move forward, you keep digging in that, it starts to fall in place. The way to do it is all different. It's all depends on how your equation is. A lot of people do with questionnaires and all of that because they want structured thought. We like, and I'm sure most of us like to get onto a a meeting and then do it, but several meetings. The whole idea, which when I'm talking to the CEOs, is, can you please help me understand what you're trying to say? Forget about the world. Right? If I can get what you're trying to say, and I'm not your audience, which means that half of what you're saying, the other person will get in like half of the time. I might not, but you have to put in that effort. Which means if I can get it, your customer will definitely will get it. Right? That's that's the start point.
You
And
know what
also,
they
I
say,
feel
if you get an idea completely, can you explain it simply? So, ladies and gentlemen, with this, we come to the end of our panel. Thank you so much. Everyone, put your hands together in a massive round of applause for our panelists.